I'm delighted to be joined here today by Shuli Chowdhury. Shuli recently joined as a trustee at the MS Society and brings her experience in the research environment and with research grants to her position as a trustee. She'll be talking to us today about her experiences joining a board and sitting on a board. Lovely to have you with you, Shuli.
Thank you, Jenny. I'm really happy to be here and to be able to share my experiences. I hope it's useful.
Great. So to begin with, maybe we could start by discussing why you think it's important for decision-making boards to be diverse.
There's lots of research out there that has shown that having diverse views, that different lived experience, and bringing that to the table where decisions are made is really, really important. It makes organizations more effective in their decision-making. Challenging and questioning at the table is really, really important, and is shown to be at the heart of good governance. And to me, it's a no-brainer really, because if you want to be a forward-thinking organization, if you want to innovate, if you want to create, be more resilient, which is needed now more than ever, given that we're in this kind of hopefully post-pandemic period coming up, having a strong governance body and having those different experiences and diversity of views isn't just a tick box exercise. It will mean that your organization will be stronger and benefit from that. And one example that I saw recently, although not in the research sector or higher education, it was about a company that makes profit. They saw a 138% increase in profit over 4 years just by bringing in people who were not the same as the usual suspects in the boards. So people who are very, very senior, who've sat on a number of different boards, and it does genuinely make a difference.
Great, thank you. And I couldn't agree more. It's absolutely critical. Moving on to reflecting on your own experiences, you've recently joined as a trustee in January. Could you reflect on your experiences, first thinking about joining a board and sort of going through that process, that recruitment process, and what are your reflections on that really?
Okay, thanks, Jenny. I've been thinking about doing something more, so contributing in a meaningful way. So I always like the idea of volunteering, and I really wanted to apply my experience working in the research sector for the last 20 odd years. So having moved from academia into the research funding and policy side of things, I wanted to do more. I had both professional and personal reasons for wanting to contribute to a medical charity. And the idea of being able to contribute to how an organization moves forward, makes decisions, how it can improve and serve the community that it's trying to support. So in my case, having a family member who suffered from a neurological condition and having benefited directly from organizations like medical charities that support families in those situations, I knew what a big difference they could make. But having done my reading, I know that those organizations realize they're not reaching all of the community that they want to serve because they don't have that diversity of views and lived experiences on their board. And the reason why I applied to the MS Society is that they were very, very open and honest about what they needed. They wanted somebody not only with a background in research funding, but they also wanted to reach more people who they know are suffering from MS. There are carers who are from underrepresented backgrounds. And so they know that one way of doing that is to bring in people and those perspectives. So for me, that was really appealing. The other thing that I found really supportive, I guess, and encouraging is that they were really honest about the pool at the moment. The people who are on those non-executive roles are not representative, and the stats are very clear about that. So I think 8% people of color are on boards, for example. But if you keep going to that same pool, that's not going to change. And so what they did was that they were open to people who didn't have trustee experience. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm going to give this a go. I was very honest. I contacted the organization that was recruiting on their behalf. I spoke to them about my background and my experience and why I wanted to apply. They were equally honest in return. I put in an application. I also talked to friends and colleagues to find out if anybody had experience applying to a trustee role. What did it actually mean to be a trustee? What was involved? What I also found encouraging is that I didn't have to know all the charity law and how the Charity Commission works in detail. That was going to be part of the learning process. But what was important is why I was going to apply. What is it that I'm going to bring to that organisation and why I think I could make a difference? And that's what I put in my application and went through the process.
That's really positive to hear, and hopefully as well will be food for thought for our participants who are thinking of applying for this programme in terms of their own journey and what they might be looking for. I wonder if you could reflect a little bit on some of your learnings since being a trustee and what you think participants and people who are new to joining a board might gain or expect from that experience.
I think from the outset, I'd like to say that you might be pleasantly surprised at how much you can actually contribute. And I have found that I do have the questions that come to mind so I've been to 2 board meetings so far, and in each one I've had no problems asking my question. I haven't felt daft or anything like that. Sometimes the questions there probably means that it's worthwhile asking, and it might be a different view to the more seasoned board members that were there. I found it incredibly rewarding. In terms of what I've learned, they had a really good induction program. So I've been paired up with somebody who's more experienced on the board, so like a buddy system, and that's really helped. So I've been able to ask all of my questions, no matter how simple or basic, or asking about why this happens or how far do I go. And I think one of the things that I'm really I'm still trying to find the balance on is, as a trustee, you're kind of coming in and giving that helicopter view of things and that kind of strategic aspect, and stepping away from doing the operational, the kind of day-to-day delivery, which I'm experienced at doing. And so understanding where you are as a trustee versus how you support the executive team and the team that work with them to enable them and empower them to do the best that they can in line with the mission and the goals of the organization that they work for. So I think that's one of the things that I've learned. I'm loving it. I'm learning lots. I feel really inspired by the people that I'm meeting, and also meeting with the kind of wider community that support the MS Society and their experiences, and hearing and thinking about how we can really genuinely make a difference to them. I mean, I can't really recommend it highly enough. So if you're not sure, there's lots of good guidance documents out there. So an organization I've been following is called Getting on Board, and they had a really good guide about how to become a trustee of a charity. Green Park have also done some really interesting research about diversifying boards, and they also had some really good tips about how to apply, how to recruit people from different backgrounds, different underrepresented backgrounds. So I'm still learning, and I imagine I'll continue learning in this kind of role.
What would your advice be to participants or people thinking about joining a board who are a little bit hesitant about putting in an application?
If you're hesitant, it also means that there's a part of you that's quite interested and intrigued by applying for a role that's kind of in that kind of governance space, I guess, if you want to call it that, whether it's a school governor or as a trustee or being on a decision-making body of some sort. If you're not sure, I would do your research is my number one tip. So talk to people. What have you got to lose? It is a time commitment. So of course, that could be part of your hesitancy. So again, my point about being selective in what you apply for. So doing your homework. The other thing I really wanted to stress as well is there's a couple of people that I've spoken to recently who are quite interested in taking on a trustee role and would like to apply, but they're holding themselves back because they had a career break for personal reasons or family reasons. And what I wanted to kind of stress is that lived experience really does matter. It's not about being in an active job right now. I'm saying this not because I'm being idealistic, but because I've seen how the different views and aspects in discussions that I've been part of, those kind of different experiences really do make a difference. And it really enriches the discussion and makes the decisions that come out of it more relevant for the community that, trying to support, for example. So I wouldn't see that as a negative thing, because whatever you were doing during that career break, there's all sorts of kind of experiences and skills that are just as important that you can bring out in your discussion and might even make you stand out. So yeah, don't hold back because of that.
And finally, what would be your top tip for one of our participants considering joining or putting in an application for Success on the Board?
I actually had a couple of tips, if I may. My number one tip would be don't hold back. I really wish, now having gone through this experience, I had applied sooner. I think what was holding it back was my inner critic. So ignore your inner critic. You don't know unless you try. Be selective. So I thought really carefully. We're all really busy. I have a young family and a busy job, but I really wanted to do something more. And so for me, this was really important. So I was quite selective about which organizations I would like to apply for. And once I knew what my search criteria was, I went on LinkedIn, if that's your thing. You can do little search parameters on there, following certain organizations. You will find the organization that suits you. There's different decision-making bodies. You also learn so much. So my tip would be just talk to people and find out what it's like, see if it's for you. And the other thing as well is I really think people who've got that research background, I mean, you have the perfect set of skills. We're trained to be critical, to critically analyze. We're trained to be curious. Most people want to do research because they're curious. Innovation is part of, creativity is part of that whole research sector. And I think those skills are really, really valuable and would help discussing at the board level. So yeah, I would just go for it.
Fantastic. Really helpful and inspiring tips. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. And anybody thinking of applying, good luck. And thank you for listening.